Are you a business owner looking for real advice and input? You're in the right place. From concept to launch to growth, funding, and beyond. Welcome to Startup Hustle with your hosts. One once sold a business for $150 million. The other, the author of $1 Million Bedroom. Here are your hosts of Startup Hustle, Matt DeCoursey and Matt Watson.
And we're back. Another episode of Startup Hustle. Matt DeCoursey here with Bo Nelson, who will be sitting in for Matt Watson today. Hi, Bo.
Hey, what's going on?
How are you?
Man, every day is just a rodeo. It's like, is it going to be 8 seconds, or is it going to be 8 hours, or is it going to be 80 hours? I don't know what this week, So you just kind of strap your hand in and you're just like, whoo, here we go.
And hello, Bo.
Here we go.
So, Bo, I'll introduce you, man. So, Bo, you are one of my favorite entrepreneurs here in Kansas City for a lot of different reasons, which we will get into in the coming moments. But you're also the owner, co-founder, barista, maintenance guy,
just
all
hype
around
man.
Hype man, lead singer of Thou Mayest Coffee Roasters.
Yeah, fresh on the tour bus this year. So
right,
yeah,
right, and
first stop Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe. So as far as that goes, you are our inaugural coffee shop owner.
Yeah.
And
Great.
I'm excited to talk about that because
Me too.
this is just like, as I was telling you before we hit record, trying to, just continue to branch out because there's so many layers of startups and business and just so many awesome entrepreneurs, not only in Kansas City, but everywhere.
Yeah.
So
I think it's cool how they all overlap too, and there's some little nuances and little Easter eggs in each industry, and the more you can start to, I call it like cross-pollination, and you get these strange little hybrids that appear where you take, say, a software, somebody who understands writing software, and then all of a sudden you say, how do we sell more bags of coffee through online retail using software, you know, and now all of a sudden you've just integrated this product with the software, and now I think that's the future.
Well,
I
maybe.
think it's cool.
I heard that this internet thing might stick around.
It might, yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see.
I was telling my kids
know.
yesterday when they were asking about a computer, and I was like, that's just a fad anyway. So
you won't need to learn how to do it.
But what isn't a fad is coffee.
Yeah.
Man, it's like, is coffee or tea the world's most popular drink?
So it's coffee.
Does it depend who you ask?
Yeah, it does, but it's coffee right behind crude oil in terms of highest traded commodity in the world.
Really?
Yeah.
Coffee and then crude oil?
So it's crude oil and then coffee.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's right behind it. And
I know tea is pretty popular in a lot of countries, and coffee is everywhere. But
it's all plant products, and that's what's cool about it. And that's kind of where my background and expertise started, was just in the actual plant product side of it.
Was it selling weed?
Yeah, totally, man. Been doing that for years.
Sorry, I couldn't back off of that one.
No, but I was doing plant production and learning that language of just plants and seeing what they can do for us and with us, and this idea that we are this apex predator, we are at the top of the food chain, and that plants aren't this sentient thing. I actually beg to differ. I think
they're kind of the other way around, because we're probably going to die without them.
Yeah, and they, even crude oil, it's like, what is oil? It's just a bunch of plant matter that got
smashed together
over
with a bunch of pressure for a way long period of time. So, well, the coffee business, and like, people have been drinking coffee for a long ass time.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. Like, what is the actual? Do we know the real history of coffee? Because it's probably like back to like the Incas or someone crazy.
It's pretty shady. They say it's from like Ethiopia, but Yemen also says, hey, we're the first. So it's somewhere in that kind of Middle Eastern, African, Rift Valley type of area. High kind of. A little bit on the dry, arid side. A lot of people think that they are in tropical rainforest. It is a tropical fruit, so it's like a cherry that gets produced on. And this is where the debate comes in: is it a tree or is it a shrub? And so there's a lot of
I've spent a lot of time debating that with people. I'm more of a shrub.
Yeah,
guy.
right.
I mean, thinking like, I don't know. I wouldn't. I mean,
yeah, it's all in how you cultivate it too. And so you can use.
But this goes back thousands of years.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was a guy who he noticed there was some goats that started eating these berries, and they started going crazy. And
maybe I should eat some of these berries and see what happens.
Yeah, this is how all good drugs get started. So
well, you mentioned that. I mean, there are obviously chemical properties that we chase as coffee drinkers, which then leads it to be a commodity, which over the history of commodities always creates interesting and sometimes adverse situations. Is that fair to say?
It can.
Meaning people will fight over it.
Yeah, people fight, and they just find areas to hide within the industry because it's so big.
Right.
There was popes that actually outlawed the use of coffee because it incited revolution. And that's what's cool is the history of coffee is fairly punk in that regard.
Nice.
It kind of all started in the garage of, hey, here's this product coming back from the Middle East, on the Silk Road, and you've got the Dutch who are like paving the way for all. If you just watch where the Dutch, what colonies they touched, you'll see this heavy-handed horticultural movement right behind them. So the Dutch used, in their colonization, they use agriculture as a means for sustainable growth within their empire, which is a little bit different with the British and the French and some of the other people who were behind them in terms of the agriculture. But you start looking at what does Java mean, this port of Java that the Dutch started bringing all these spices back from the Mideast.
And here's this exotic stuff called coffee.
And it took a depressant, you think about that time, people were having to drink ale and wine because water wasn't safe to drink. And so then they started boiling water, which kills everything, and then they started using it for coffee because that's how you drank coffee, and tea as well. Those two are very closely linked, but you've got all these spices, all these plant products coming back into Europe from the Middle East. It changes the way that they gather, because now you sit in these salons and drink coffee and you get stimulated instead of depressed. Your thoughts all of a sudden become crisp, clear, bright, instead of this no, I don't want to say darkness, because I don't think that's fair, but this is what they claim is part of the instigation behind the Enlightenment period. Has to do with these wine houses turning to coffee shops, inciting revolutions that turns to the Enlightenment and brings us America. So coffee is responsible for America. That's what I'm really trying to get at.
Bo,
here.
I like where you're going, and I like where you're going with all this, and you're talking about inciting revolution. Yeah. Now, in this day and age, if you took coffee away from people, it would probably incite a revolution.
Yeah, or at least a lot of headaches, yeah.
Yeah, and it would. It's become a staple. The interesting thing is you look back and, I think some people would laugh. They'd be like, they thought coffee was like a big drug, but people weren't as consumption-based back then. So, that was a big change in your chemistry, like that cup of coffee.
Oh, it's
like,
huge.
Woo!
Yeah,
like
especially
now that's just like everything you eat and drink.
Yeah,
so.
and everybody's hypersensitive to it. I mean, same thing with sugar as well.
Yeah.
This new crop starts showing up in our lives and
makes your teeth fall out, makes you hyper, but it tastes good.
Yeah, and everybody gets addicted to it.
Leads to a zillion things.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
it's an interesting history, and that's just one of the many components that got me kind of it got my attention, because I was like, it's cool history.
So you're cultivating plants.
Yeah.
But you're not growing coffee at that point, because
no,
coffee's
I didn't
not
even know
native. It doesn't even grow around here.
No,
can you even grow it?
It's a tropical fruit.
Okay.
So it's called the coffee belt.
Is it a tree or a shrub?
Oh man, don't put me on that.
Okay, we'll come back to that.
It's a
It's a shrub. Okay.
And
you guys heard it here first on Startup Hustle.
I'm not going to open
where we clearly define the truth.
Yes.
And also incite revolution.
It's a shrub. It's a big shrub. I'll say it. It's a big
You just sound so disappointed when
I
you say that.
know,
Like
because
really
there's
want it
some
to be a
people who
tree.
really want to die on that hill, and I'm sorry to tell
Man, I got to be honest with you, Bo. I feel like your efforts are probably better spent than trying to defend that position. Just accept it for what it is. It's a shrub. And now we're going to
This is some of the things in the industry that we get kind of buried in sometimes. Is it SL88 or is it this new Bourbon that's over, and
so when you're talking, you're actually talking about strains of plants and
varietals,
and just like different stuff. So, all right, so obviously now I'm going to offend the world of coffee and be like,
please do.
Be like, oh God, I drink Folgers.
Yeah.
That will piss some people off. They're like, oh, never.
Yeah, everybody has their drug of choice.
Well, I don't drink Folgers, but certain things like that is it. But obviously, coffee has been an artisan product, and it's continued to be. Now, let's be realistic. All right. So one of my mentors once said to me, he advised me to be more cowardly, meaning as an entrepreneur, meaning like don't take on the giants. Like don't be brave. Like taking on Google and Amazon, dude, brave. So be a coward. Go do something that no one else is doing, and go somewhere and do it where they'll leave you alone to get really good at it. Okay, but let's be realistic in the coffee business, and let's give some background. So once again, Thou Mayest, you guys have locations around Kansas City. I see your stuff in offices and all different kinds of places. But the reality is, dude, you're taking on the giants. You're not cowardly in your approach. You're like, fuck you. Yeah. I'm here to defend the fact that this is a shrub, I mean a tree, and I'm not going to take any shit from you, Starbucks or whatever. So let's you obviously have retail locations. Now, when I talked to you the last time I saw you, you were telling me that the way that you need to make money, or the way you have to go about this is through producing some of your own stuff and get into that. So like, dude, like, let's just get right after it. How the hell do you compete with Starbucks and anywhere and everywhere that sells coffee?
Yeah, I think really taking a big step back, huge step, and that was where we didn't start, was trying to, you're writing a business plan. Who's the competition? Yeah. Is it Casey's General Store? Because everybody is driving in from out of town, and I live on the outskirts of Kansas City, and I'm coming in.
Well,
from
if that's the case, then it's
McDonald's,
right? Subway. I mean, Casey's General Store, anywhere, like
anywhere
everywhere, so you can buy coffee anywhere.
Right? And technically, that'll give you your fix. So, is that really what I'm going for? Or am I going for somebody who wants more? Like they want something that's going to be more beautiful in terms of not just its presentation, but you don't have to do the little shimmy shake after you slam down an espresso. That's not how espresso, if it's properly prepared and presented and consumed, it should be really smooth. It should be balanced. There shouldn't be a sharpness. There's certain. It's kind of like anything. Once you've experienced something that's maybe done a little bit differently, it's really hard to take a step back and go back to that Maxwell House or the Folgers or even the Starbucks. I try to do it as often as my wife the other day was like, she gets coffee headaches. I don't get them. And we were not near any of our stores, and we were on a vacation.
Sounds dangerous.
Oh, it was horrible.
I meant the vacation part.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, that's being.
I think you're like me. I think on day 3 of vacation, you probably start getting antsy.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna break. I need to go break something so that I can fix it and just give my mind something to do. Cause
maybe you should take more lumber with you on vacation. You can break it in half and then try to put it back together.
Yeah, or just stop drinking coffee, And so when I do it, I
drink the coffee, break the boards, drink more coffee, put them back together.
Vicious loop.
Problems. Yeah, I get it. It happens.
So she gets coffee headaches. So we went to Starbucks and it reminded me of just some of the things that we're trying to overcome are just language. So, for instance, like a cappuccino that's defined by Starbucks versus a cappuccino in the traditional industry are two very different drinks. And we have to be able to know that when people come in and they're looking up at a menu and they're intimidated by a bunch of language. What does single origin mean? Like, I have no clue what that means. And I try to put myself in their position as often as I can. Go to Casey's General Store in the morning in a farming town and just listen to the old guys chaw. And you listen to these guys and you'll ask them questions. Yeah, I'm from out of town. I grew up on a farm, but I'm pretty far removed from it now. Hey, what do you guys like in a cup of coffee? And like listening to them, for me, that's the touch point of like that I'm wanting. Because if I can get them to understand what I'm doing, then maybe I can get more. There's more nuance or more. I don't want to say sophistication.
I feel like who you just described right there is not your target audience.
It doesn't appear to be, but it should be. Like they, of anybody, they're putting in the hours, they're putting in the days to produce the raw product that we're then, these farmers are the same ones in essence that I'm buying my coffee from.
Sure. No, I get that. I get that. But I don't need that fancy cup of coffee. Why is it $4?
If I can convince them that it's worth it, then I can convince anybody.
Okay, I don't disagree.
Yeah. That's why I say it's my touch point. It's my grandma who's out like in Abilene, Kansas, and
so challenge one that we've run across is someone walks into Thou Mayest. Now it's okay. So and we'll use Starbucks because obviously that's the most reasonable example that everyone would identify with. Yeah. Well, they've done a good job of defining and giving weird ass names to all their stuff.
Venti, Grande, these made up names.
By the way, I won't do that. I won't order Venti.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want large.
Yeah.
I just won't. I'm just that guy.
Yeah.
I'm like, fuck you. This isn't Italy.
I don't understand it, but
No, I get it. I
yeah.
get it. And also, like, I just, like, give me the big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm that guy.
The big
yeah.
fritter.
My wife gets frustrated with me. She's like, it's Venti. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a large.
It's just a big
It's
drink.
the big one. Give me the biggest one you have, and I will pay you for
You
it.
guys have a thermos back there?
And we will complete a transaction.
I love it when people come in with like their massive QT thermoses and they look at me and I'm like, yes, I've got you. You know,
Yeah.
and they look at me like, oh my God, I can't believe it, because the craft industry has kind of, it's gotten so technical because it loves what it does so much, right?
Yeah, so,
which is what we want,
and that's back to
right?
that challenge, though. So here someone comes in, they're like, hey, I say, okay, coffee shop, I want some of that. And then they go in and they're like, I usually drink a caramel macchiato. Like, first off, what is that? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's coffee with some foam.
Yeah.
With some like sugary stuff on top of it.
Yeah,
Now
that's
look,
another one. That is a 4-ounce drink. Like we serve that. A macchiato is a very small. It's basically your ratio of. I mean, this is very simply put, but it's of espresso and milk put together. So your espresso is just straight espresso. Then you've got your Gibraltars and your macchiatos and your cortados.
So that is
that
is a real thing.
It's a real thing, but the way that they've defined it versus like I said about the cappuccino, traditionally it's like a 6-ounce drink.
Okay.
So it's that is a cappuccino.
So when I order a Venti, I'm getting like 3 of them, and I'm gonna incite a riot.
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's where we try not to get caught up, because a lot of people will say, well, this is the hill we need to die on. Like we need to let them know that there is a better way to do things, and our approach at Thou Mayest is more seductive. So it's more, we call it show and leg, where it's more of like, hey, why don't you ask the questions?
By the way, Bo, this is why we had you in here, because there's important marketing things and entrepreneurial stuff that you listeners are going to learn today, like show and leg.
We're gonna get real saucy here with
I want to hear more. I want to hear
startup hustle.
We don't have to get seductive. We're not getting seductive yet.
Okay.
We're gonna work. We like to give it some time. I mean, I'll buy you a drink. We'll talk a little bit.
But that's what we say is like the branding part, because to try to get somebody in there, and you're like, why don't you come over here? Why don't you come and try? You know, it's this siren song. You've got your path, and you've got your it's your experience every day, and I'm trying to derail people on the, like, nudge them, hit them, however, like get their attention. Just come in here and try it, because we know once they try it and once they experience it and once they can kind of feel that there's something more, you know, because there is something more than just the transactional piece. There is a vibe that we are selling, that we are a part of, and that we are creating on a regular basis, and we hope people will be able to tap into that, and they'll feel that when they come in, because if I'm just selling coffee online, I'm in big trouble.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Now you're not cowardly at all.
Because
like, you get the cowardly comparison, because here's the thing is, like, you know, you hear the story of David and Goliath.
Yeah.
The thing you don't hear is the 999 other times that he didn't win.
Right.
The Goliath just crushed him underfoot, kept walking, and he was like, oh, did I step on something?
Sorry, I didn't even see you there.
But I mean, let's be realistic, and here on Startup Hustle, like, the advice and that point that I just made about being cowardly is okay. It doesn't sound sexy.
No.
That's not a seductive way to put it, because no one wakes up and they're like, you know what, Bo, I'm here. I'm going to be the biggest coward I can possibly be today. But my point is it is actually a good approach, because if you can manage to find something and you carve a niche, say there's riches in the niches, blah, blah, blah. Like, but at the same time, like, you know, like,
I think it's interesting.
Your total addressable market with coffee is also infinite.
Yeah.
So you can still carve out a piece of it, but where and how. So I feel like a lot of that, it's also got to come down to the efficiency of your operation, your ability to get people to either come. Like, I don't want to walk by Thou Mayest without stopping in.
Yeah.
So is that where you're showing lag? You're like, hey, come on back in.
Well, it's not just on that, but it's we're trying to take that into the online world as well, because I believe that the future lies in this really gray area between the physical and the digital. So that's between this. You've got this physical product. Like, so here's a good for instance. I think that there's about to be, if not already, people will there's probably a name for this already. I call it the vibe economy. But it's because everything it's commoditized online. You can get this stuff,
Yep.
you know, in a few hours, you know, and if in a short amount of time, I'm sure there will be drones. There's going to be something wild that disrupts shipping that's allowing us to get product, boom, as instant as we can possibly imagine. That's where the future is heading.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know how it's going to flesh it out, but that is the future. They will have my coffee in their hands within a minute of them, like even probably just thinking about it. I have no clue how this is going to work. If I'm not being in this modality of like looking towards the future, saying, I wonder how that's going to affect my business, because Maxwell House is selling their coffee plants left and right now, because there is a growing number of people who have been exposed to fresh roasted craft coffee, gotten quickly by people like me who can get that coffee roasted that day, get it to them, get it to their house. They don't even have to get up. I've worked all my shipping into it. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, I wonder what these guys are all about, because this is a real competitive price. Now,
why food products in general, like how you know, there's just so much crap and everything we eat, drink, and whatever, but I feel like people are becoming a lot more aware of that. And then on some levels too are also like, I mean, you look at this like garbage patch the size of Texas out in the Pacific Ocean, and they're trying to, like, we were talking about that here because like you brought us some coffee, and I was like, man, we got to grind that. We got to do a better job of like using this and whatever.
It's a lot of it is education.
You're sitting there like burning through all these cups with Keurig, and now you think about like 2 million other people doing that, and all of a sudden, like, that's a lot of freaking cups.
Every single building around here, and every single business, every single house, there's a lot of coffee, and there's a lot of bad coffee.
And totally. So now, while retail in general is troubled in many regards for reasons like Amazon being, I mean, dude, it's
I disagree.
Well, I'll get there. Hang on. So it's troubled in many regards, and then in some regards, it's going to go through a renaissance because these niche, local,
that's what I get so pumped
and
about.
Experience-based things. So, like, where can I do something different for you that you aren't normally going to feel? Like you talk about the vibe in the coffee house, and you know what? If we're going to do, I'm doing air quotes here, the coffee house vibe. I mean,
which one?
That's my point.
Is it like mid-90s Central Perk? You know, is it from
like
Friends?
Is it like Seattle and like, you know, like, hey, cool. I'm like going to hear like a guy play some really shitty songs on an acoustic guitar.
Right. We're a community place.
Or now like the modern work, and you're going to hate this, but I hate getting invited on coffee dates because I get to these places and I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, how do I even talk?
Yeah.
And, you know, but on some regards, like, it makes a lot of sense. So earlier today, John Thompson, the founder of Pay It, was here, and he revealed to us that they actually worked out of coffee houses. He called it squaffacing.
Totally.
Like we encouraged squatting and officing. And he was like, until we had like 8 or 10 employees
would do it. And then we cooked them up with coffee afterwards. So they were one
he said as long as we had a tab open and we were buying coffee, the places didn't care. And
nobody
like,
cares.
That's a company that's taken in $110 million in venture funding. Like, and you heard it here. Like for real, like, think about that. And so that's a different vibe. And I think that's where that's come down to. Now, all of a sudden, if my experience can be walking into one of your places and I'm going to see other people that are entrepreneurs or people that are doing stuff, that's all of a sudden, that's a little different. Can I have a collision into someone that matters or someone that's going to do something? Or I don't know, man. You never know.
So this is where we got to be careful, because I already start to feel the goosebumps, which means like we could go off 100 different directions here.
We probably will. I think we both have entrepreneurial ADD. So, and 5 or 6 hours when this is over.
Yeah. So and so Rick Usher brings this up, and I'll just kind of rapid fire some of this stuff and you can tell me if you want me to dive deeper into it. Rick Usher, assistant city manager. He talks about a collision density index. So he's kind of mapped out all the coffee shops around the city, and then he's also as nodes, and then what happens around those. And let's look at the entrepreneurial activity that is springing up around these natural nodes. And that's where I've looked at it being really tied into the entrepreneurial community, saying, first of all, the entrepreneurial community in Kansas City has really stepped up in a big way. Those are our people. Like, those are our friends. Those are the people that we live and are, you know, kind of fighting next to. And so in a camaraderie sense, it's like, hey, we can compare notes, we can have drinks at the end of the bar in the AM or in the PM when we had our liquor license, to be able to say, like, you know, how can we help each other to get down this road? How can we share in each other's resources? And the coffee shop became this community distribution it was like this Rolodex almost that was in the shop, and it was, you'd walk in and you'd say, hey, here's what I need. I need a UX developer for X, Y, and Z. And be like, he's at the end of the bar. You should just go, here's the introduction, and watch these. So I call it the idea brothel. I don't run the coffee shop, I run the idea brothel because all these ideas come in, and if we've done our job to set the table and set the tone.
I'm going to reuse that and probably I'll probably get in trouble for it.
I get in trouble all the time.
That's when I know that
there's a really good TED Talk, and this guy talks about these places where ideas go to have sex, and that's where I run the idea sex house.
Dude, that's fine. Like the bunny ranch of entrepreneurial, whatever. But
here we are, late night.
So, what you were just describing is one of the things that co-working spaces pitch. Yeah. They're like, hey, it's one thing to have your office down here, but it's a completely another thing to be around other people that blah 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 blah. But that really, and I say blah 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 blah. That's just because I don't want to sit there and try to paraphrase someone else, but it's not a blah, 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 blah. It's actually really important because you never know what's going to happen when you get around other people. Like, it's easy to want to say, I'm just going to go home. Yeah. I'm going to just go home and I'm going to just watch TV, or I'm going to mow my yard. I'm going to do something different. But when you get around other people that shock and persuade your soul to ignite, as I steal a line from Fish, I will say, well, that's really but it's always meant something to me. Like, what does shock and persuade you to move and like do something, and being around other like-minded people is a key ingredient. That's why I love doing this podcast.
It's the only thing that gets me up in the morning anymore, because I'm like, man, I love coffee. I absolutely adore not just the plant, but just the process and the ritual and like what it does. But man, there is something that like rips down into my soul every time I walk in that shop and I see people talking and I see these dates happening, I see business transactions, and all of a sudden, like, if I can do a better job.
This is more than a cup of coffee.
Totally. It is and people say, let's go grab coffee. Let's go grab that connection, that connectivity part. It's just coffee as conduit. Coffee is just a reason. It's just a thing. I've said this since the beginning, and the more I freaking drink the Kool-Aid, the more I'm like, this is
the coffee. The more you drink the coffee.
Yeah, right. I'm like, the more I see it, the more it affects me, because when we were closing up our last shop, we have video footage that we're just sitting on that I don't even know what to do with, because it just makes me cry every time I see it. It's just all the faces and all the people whose lives have been touched in a positive way by a brand. But
you're talking about closing a store, but meanwhile you're opening other ones.
Yeah,
so
and that's
like, how many locations do you guys have here in town now?
A lot that I can say for.
Okay.
There's some more that are being worked on as we speak.
But then I also see you guys have partnered. So I was at Pro Athlete, and Andrew Dowse was in here recording. I don't know if this will be before or after, but they literally have like a Thou Mayest coffee bar there in their office. Yeah. So you guys are in a lot of different places.
Yeah, I was actually just up there delivering kegs of coffee before I came here.
Kegs?
Yeah, they do our cold brew on tap. So you just put your face.
So I just took, and for those of you that are curious what I do during this episode, when I'm not, trying to prevent myself from swearing, I take notes, and I actually wrote this down. Making simple things meaningful.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about, because inherently, the intrinsic nature of a cup of coffee, while it actually isn't super simple, but it is, man. It's a cup of coffee. It's like a daily thing. It's like, hey, I wake up, I have a cup of coffee, I eat a couple eggs, I ate a biscuit, whatever it is you do. Yeah. So these are simple things, but then how do they become a lot more meaningful?
Injected with meaning, and all of a sudden, like, man, that is the world that I want to live in. Like, that has those sort of meaningful touches all around. And if we can influence somebody with something as, I'm using air quotes, meaningless and simple as a cup of coffee, which it kind of is in the grand scheme of things,
but
right?
How do you make it meaningful?
Right.
Yeah, simple things.
And if we can do that with just something as simple as coffee, what else can we do that with? And if we can show other people, like, hey, you saw how much joy and you saw what sort of energy that could bring in this little moment of your day. And if you are leaving saying, wow, man, every time I leave there, awesome product, awesome vibe, awesome people. I feel better. I feel more energized. And all of a sudden you alliterate that with our brand, and all of a sudden you can spread that to other people. Now we're dealing with something that we're like, and this is what we found when we closed the shop. There's a spirit of the company.
Yep.
There's like a force, a presence.
Yeah.
It is its own person now,
Yeah.
while it is probably in its adolescent teen years, still trying to figure itself out. Kind of awkward, trying relationships out, trying all this, who am I? What am I? Like all those things you ask as a teenager, but we're past all these infant years. Like we went to school and we found out what we didn't want to do, and we got a lot of things out of the way in the first 5 years that kind of trips a lot of people up, and we just kind of leaned into it, wanted to get that thing over with, get it done with, so that we could say that's what we don't want. Now we can really focus and double down on what we do want.
And the thing is too, with starting a business and running one and evolving it and learning, is you can't speed that process up.
It is really difficult.
I mean, you can't.
Yeah.
Like so many people, they just, and I'm like that. I want to just jump to the final chapter. I like the beginning and the end. It's the middle part of a business that often drives me nuts, but there's no way to really make it to that successful end without just kind of like, and dude, you're like me, you're animated, you're talkative, you're energetic.
Yeah.
And the thing is that means you're also not inherently patient. Mm-hmm. Like me, and that's when I'm like, God, like the worst thing in the world for me is the reason I've never gotten into cooking is I hate waiting.
Oh yeah.
I want it now, so.
Well, it's and I was thinking about this actually this weekend, because I'll find myself stuttering a lot lately, or saying and using words. I'll get tripped up on my words, and I've realized this past weekend. It's because my brain is moving faster.
Too faster. Yeah.
And I'm like, I need to bring it, use a discipline to bring that, center yourself and the
Oh,
breathing techniques, and because I find myself getting angry, and I'm that's
My wife says that to me all the time. She's like, why are you angry? I'm like, I'm not fucking angry. I'm just passionate about this right now. She's like, guys, you sound pretty angry right now.
It looks pretty angry.
Stop telling me I'm angry.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm in the same boat, and that's where...
For those of you listening in your earbuds, I'm sorry you had to go through that just now, but that was a realistic insight.
I have these noise-canceling earbuds, and I was actually screaming the other day, and I had somebody outside come inside saying oh, I thought you were in trouble.
So while this started talking about coffee shops, and we will end by talking about coffee shops when we get there, but one of the things that I think is really fun and insightful, and I hope that those that are listening enjoy, is getting an insight into the thought process of how some of us work, and it's all different, because you have people that are analytical, and then I have a feeling you and I share this. So you just mentioned, you got all these things going on in your head too fast. People are like, wow, I wish I was an idea guy like you. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, you don't understand. I spend most of my day wanting it to be quiet. It's impossible.
I crave peace. That's it.
But dude, I never get it.
I call them the bees.
Yeah. Oh, dude. I've never thought of it like that. But
Shut
it's seriously, and back to my wife and I have different. Is your wife introverted and patient?
She is. Yeah, she has her head on straight, and she's very
logical.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why she can put up with you. My wife is the same way.
Yeah.
There's only one personality style that can deal with ours, and I'm going to lump you in with mine. Yeah. But I get it. But the problem is sometimes as an entrepreneur, I get that cart in front of the horse, and then I want more carts, and then I'm like, but why not buy a bunch of horses? Well, let's get some other things too. And next thing you know, I got a fucking farm and a wagon trail going on, and I'm working a deal off to the side to buy some oxen. And somehow
on the horse breeding over here.
Somehow over on the side, I've started a textiles plant, and this is somehow also back in
It makes sense.
This is also during Oregon Trail, and then everyone died of diphtheria, and the story ended. But but no, it's and that's so. Is that something you've had a hard time with? Because it's something that all right, so I'm getting old, man. I'm 44 now, and with that, I've been able to slow the game down a little bit.
Yeah, it's important.
And it's made a huge difference, and so much of that comes with saying no to more.
Yeah. Just
saying can't do it, guys, or having to prioritize, or saying, hey, I don't know, and because the thing is if I did everything that I wanted, if I tried to capitalize on all the ideas that I felt were great, I'd never have any bandwidth. I'd be doing 100 different things, and I wouldn't get good at any of them.
Yeah, and that's definitely the issue. And the problem I see with this, air quotes again, this entrepreneurship thing is
every podcast needs gestures and air quotes. Man. And by the way, this is on video, so if you're listening, you can go check it out on YouTube and see that Bo and I are clearly concerned about our personal appearance.
Yeah,
today.
Right. I'm totally
it's okay. It's okay.
Sweating earlier, but
I'm dressed up today.
Let me
I wore a clean T-shirt.
Oh yeah, this one actually doesn't stink.
Yeah, I know
how that goes. So let me ask this. So there's information overload. There's analysis paralysis, that type of all the cute little idioms that come with that.
So true though.
If you could distill entrepreneurship down, you have 2 books before you have to take your leap. What 2 books would those be, or 3? It could be 3. For me? Yeah.
I mean, I in some ways I wrote them.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and this will come out long after tomorrow, but my 3rd book comes out tomorrow. So, and I have to look back, if I had 2 books.
Just for that person who's like, I have this idea, I see where the ledge is, and most people get up to that ledge and they tiptoe up to it and they look over and they're like, ooh, not shit, me, man. That's a long way down.
No, I'm usually in full stride and then I'm off the edge and I'm like, and I jumped and then built wings.
Right, and or it's like, oh, that just looks like it's far down. It's not actually that far. Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's only just a split second.
And then you jump, and then you're like, oh shit, I didn't even have enough time to build wings.
Right.
I don't know if I have books. I think that because here's the thing: is I used to read a lot. Like my early readership was just kind of like those business and sales standards, Brian Tracy, and the 7 habits of this and that, and
Covey and Maxwell.
Yeah, that kind of standard stuff, and I feel like those are good foundation pieces. And then I realized that's honestly why I wrote my book. So one of them, Balance Me, is about the attempt to find balance in your personal, professional, and physical life. And it's not a life balance book, because honestly, I tell you right away, I'm like, well, first off, I say, if you're not willing to admit that you're probably that you're most likely your own worst problem, just put the book back, because you're going to be disappointed, and I can't help you.
Yeah.
But that book was kind of just my take on trying to that eternal plate spinning mentality of like, okay, so I have my personal being, my professional being, and my physical. And some people say work life, but I take it out. I got 3 Ps there. So the question is like, if they stay way out of balance for way too long, then, well, life forces them back into place.
Yeah.
But there's no proper state of balance that's universal. It's different for me than it is for my wife or whatever. And then, then I'm, like I said, I know I'm kind of taking the cheap way out and plugging my own books maybe, but then my other book, $1 Million Bedroom, is just like that realist. Like I tried to be as raw and forthcoming about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, all the way down to smashing my fucking phone on the floor into like 1 million pieces after I got screwed by Amex.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, people tell you, and they say this to you all the time, they're like, I want to start a business. I'm like, you need to know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you don't just go, as an entrepreneur, you don't just go home and roll around on the money that you threw all over your bed because you didn't have anywhere else to put it.
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of anguish, heartache, anxiety, depression. There's a lot of feelings of, hey, today I'm a genius. Tomorrow I'm like, dude, I need
success, failure, judging, even just the rat race, chasing the cheese, looking at everybody else's freaking Instagrams, and especially in an aesthetic business.
Where do I go? There's 9,000 things. So I do this. So
you're cutting through the clutter, and that's where what we've done, and to this. Going back to, when you've got all this information surrounding you and saying no, and we go to Rework quite a bit. The book Rework, some of the guys who did Basecamp, and it's like 1-page chapter type of deal, straight to the point, here's why we're saying this, and here's why it matters. This is a very short read. The other one is the EMyth, how most entrepreneurs, and it's revisited, it's by Michael Gerber. It talks about, just because you're a surgeon doesn't mean you need to own the hospital.
Right.
Just because I'm, good at coffee doesn't mean I necessarily should own coffee shops. And that's where I think a lot of people get wrong, because I'm just testing. This is me testing. I want to see if I'm good at it before I take on what a retail brick and mortar, a scalable brick and mortar looks like. Because if you are sitting here saying, I want to make X amount in coffee, you are going, like you said, you're about to be sorely disappointed. Oh, I have this romantic view of this winery on the hillside of wherever it is, and that's how I'm going to do my retirement.
So, but let's talk about that for a second, because, all right, so, and I know that there's like way more to this than what I'm about to say, but you're trying to get rich $3 to $4 at a time, which means you got to line a hell of a lot of people up.
Less than that.
Yeah, that's my, that's my point. It's like, and
that.
so even if you have like a seriously high margin product, you got to line a lot of people up to do it.
And even in the what people would say, oh, you guys, even seeing all my production friends, and this goes way beyond coffee. I'm thinking of, even when I'm talking about this, it's everything from, I've got friends who are in the beer and the distilling industry. I mean, we work really close with Rieger, and we're really good friends with the guys at Lifted Spirits and Torn Label and Stockyards, and seeing like their margins on like production, like producing cans of beer, that's a volume game. Same thing in coffee, like in any sort of widget thing, like, you've got a physical product, we want to scale, we want to get more product, you have to go bigger, you have to buy in larger quantities. Now you have buying power,
you
now
take
you get
more
contracts,
risks, you have more people involved, you have to buy bigger machines,
and all of a sudden, like, man, boom, like now you're,
and that also means when you fuck up, it's more
big,
it's even more expensive,
right? And
that's going to happen because what you sell has a shelf life,
totally,
and you can burn it, you can crack it, you can lose it, it can go rotten, it can show up like, I mean, I can only imagine.
Oh yeah, and so the whole insurance game and the management and funds and how that's being used and budgets, and all of a sudden you're like, wait
a minute, I just wanted to sell coffee, dude.
Right, I just wanted to get behind.
I just want to sell coffee.
So
I just want to make macchiatos.
So that's what the EMyth talks about. It's just because you're good at that stuff doesn't mean you necessarily. So it's
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and by the way, I don't often ask you to pay attention to something I'm going to say, listeners, but do this. So just because you're passionate about something, much like Bo said, does not mean it's going to be a good business for you. I talk to so many people that have started a business and now all of a sudden they're like in it, and they're like, I'm really good at doing this, but I don't know a darn thing about running a frickin' business.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, and it happens like all the time.
Yeah.
And now they've made a lot of commitments. They have responsibilities. They may have run up like stupid amounts of debt that you're probably not climbing out of.
So this is where I get interested in of like mental models and of being able to be a synthesis machine. Like I am just a problem-solving synthesizer where information is coming in and I am like spitting out what I think would be my idea of the best way to solve this problem. Whether it's, hey, we've got a new coffee coming out and we need designs for bags, or it's like, hey, I need to change, hey, we don't know which air conditioning unit is ours, and we're trying to figure out why the air conditioning went out this morning, and I'm running around, on roofs, like figuring out which air conditioning unit I need to
And by the way,
hose
that's
off.
another thing when you want to start your own business, whether you sell software or coffee or anything, anytime it occurs, your shops don't come with an owner's manual. They might now, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And so, like, what do you do?
It's tough, and that's been the first thing that we've been working on behind the scenes is like just our policy manual. I mean, like that's all. When people say, "What do I do?" and I'm like, "Write your record everything.
Yep.
Make sure that policy is tight because now you have something that you can give some expectations to, and now you can hold your employees accountable. Because right now in the coffee world, it's really confusing, mostly to the industry because we come in and I'm like, I don't care about the skill of the barista. What I care about are these rules because if you don't agree to these, and when I'm talking rules, man, I'm kind of this king of the king of the hipsters is what I'm doing air quotes right now because I have a lot of these. That
was like 9 air quotes.
Yeah, it was
because fill them up now.
I know because it's you have all these snowflake baristas working for you. I'm like no. I'm sorry. These are the hardest working people that we are changing the way that we train. We're changing the way that we do business because if you just think that you're a barista, you need to go work for somebody else. You're not going to be a good fit for us because I want people who think outside the box. I want people who train hard, who work hard, who play hard, and who want to create a culture of positivity, inclusivity, and like we give energy. And I can't have you like putzing around, like swooping your hair back, taking 20-minute long smoke breaks because we're gonna start building muscle. And we're going to start doing that by showing up to work on time. And here's the basics. Let me give you your basics of like my bare minimum. So when people come in and they say, but I showed up to work on time, but I did everything that it says in the like that's the bare minimum. That is like the bare essentials that you should like. That's a given.
Yeah.
So we're trying to.
In my world, like, you don't like get a punch card and a scratch and sniff and shit like that because you came to work on time. That's what adults do.
Yeah, right.
That's what successful people do.
And that's all we're saying. It's like we demand a different standard of the excellence. And to get there, though, that is fighting upstream because if I wanted to be a successful coffee shop owner, I would probably buy cheaper coffee that's exploitative. I don't know. It exploits farmers in developing countries, these coffees that are much cheaper, and I could wrap some sexy packaging on it and just sell the mess out of it. And there's some really successful guys who are doing this online right now, who are not from Kansas City, but it's one of those that they put so much pressure on the industry because of the volume that they're doing with just flat out shitty, stinky feet. Like it's bad coffee.
So by the way, I want to go back to what you're talking about the professional standard in your shops. And so we mentioned earlier, you asked about the books, so you kind of opened this can of coffee per se. But I talk about in the professional section of Balance Me, I said, because so many people are like, hey, I want to make more money, I want to do better for myself. I'm like, okay, what are you really bad at?
Yeah.
And they don't want to admit it. And then you look at people like how quickly you can burn your opportunities and your bridges with dumb stuff. Like you might be when you actually get to work, you might be the greatest employee, but you show up 18 minutes late. Regularly, and you're blowing your opportunity to like do so many things. And like you said, well, I'm just a barista. No, man, like maybe you're going to be the next owner of location 9.
Dude, you are so powerful. And this is like the message of our brand is to like, there is so much freaking potential inside of you. And this is what I've learned from plants is like, everybody starts off the same, and I'm not alliterating this directly to people, so nobody get all psychological on me here. But I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm already down the rabbit hole, bro.
So everybody starts off, we like these plants all start the exact same. They're a clone. They've got all the same seed, and so they go into this pot. How I manipulate that plant is going to result in a much better product in the end. I have to touch that thing in order for it to get, I have to touch it with my actual hands by like pruning it or pinching it back. I have to touch it with nitrogen or fertilizers. I have to touch it, make sure that it has plenty of sunlight, that there's nothing impeding its sunlight so that it gets energy. And if all the things are completely right, and if I've done my job and I've tried to remove Murphy's Law as much as possible, there's bad things that will happen to this poor plant here. Pests and disease and all that stuff. But if I'm paying attention, if I'm looking down the road, and I know that this thing can be 5 to 10 times the size that Home Depot's selling it for, and I'm selling it for more money, but the value in there, it's because I directly have a value correlation with that product. Whereas over here, I'm like, you didn't touch the thing. You put it in at the last second, you put it in this cheap thing and said, here, just go turn money, we're going to do volume. And I'm like, no, I want to touch it more. I know that this thing can be more valuable.
So let's look at scenario A, what you're talking about with the value, with the people, with the caring. Some people just don't give a shit. They just want a cup of coffee.
Right.
So now what?
That's great.
You cool with that? Just buy it and move on. You're good.
That's why I say it's seductive. Like it has to be on your time when you want to engage. And we start, you come in and you're like, man, every time I come in here, I get goosebumps. What the heck are you guys up to? I'm like, well, it's probably the dopamine rush you get from having our product. Like, no, it's more than that. I'm like, okay, fine. It's probably a combination of 3 things that I'm working on a daily basis behind the scenes: the product, the service, and the environment. Recognizing you as a human when you walk in. Hey, what's up? Hey, how's it going? Hey, what can I get started for you? Hey,
it's like a lost art.
It totally is, because you walk through the door and it's like, I'm walking into, it might as well be a welding shop.
Yeah.
For all that you know and for all that I know. You walk into the lawnmower store and you're like, I don't know a daggum thing about these machines. I don't know your language. And so this is all language oriented. And so when you walk into coffee, and then you're talking about single origin. When you go in and you start talking about macchiatos, and all of a sudden you say, here's a real cappuccino is, and people are looking at you like, that's not what I wanted. You should have read my mind. And so there has to be this service side of it that's able to reach out and like, where are you actually trying to get to or go today? And you're like, when you're ordering a quad shot iced Americano, have you tried our cold brew? Because I think you're just looking for this heavy dose of caffeine, and that's 1 pound of coffee to 1 gallon of water. That blows this quad shot way out of.
See, I would appreciate that.
Right.
I would appreciate that because I'm not drinking. I'm
not speaking down on you. I just want to know because I've got a better solution.
I would appreciate.
Yeah,
that. And that would actually be meaningful for me. Like rather than just shuffling my order through, and then on some of that, I mean, sometimes you're going to swing and miss. You're like, are you really tired? Because you look tired.
Yeah.
Let me give you something that'll really get you moving.
But at that point,
and they're like, wait, what?
Yeah, and at that point, I just say, hey, if you've offended somebody by making an assumption, just comp their drinks and just be like, I'm sorry, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, whatever.
And I'll show them how to fail forward or whatever. But I'd rather them take that chance. And that's where I try to empower the employees and say, go mess a couple drinks up. It's fine. Like, you just need to go engage. And so like when we had the bar side trying to slam an AM business and a PM business together when we had that liquor license, that was a whole different thing. That was a beast because it just ripped you in half because they're two separate businesses, and people are like, oh, this makes a lot of sense to put a bar and a coffee shop together. Why hasn't anybody else done this?
Were you originally doing that, trying to maybe maximize on the expense of having the locations?
No, it was just kind of it was a serendipitous thing that was like, oh, we have a liquor license here. We should probably.
And so I'm gathering you don't do that anymore.
Well,
not
yet.
Or you don't? Okay.
Not yet.
Okay.
We'll bring it back.
Kegs of coffee.
Yeah.
Reinvented, coming soon.
That's where we. I've seen the future, man. I've seen the future of cafes, and they're cool.
Let's visit that for a second.
Yeah.
So, all right, this is going to sound freaking weird. Sometimes I honestly do feel like I literally see. I have often defined to people that work close with me. They're like, "Where are you at?" And I'm like, "I'm 3 moves ahead."
Mm-hmm.
Like the great chess masters of the world are thinking about their 6th move from now, and sometimes even further, and really insane iterations. And you mentioned I've seen the future of cafes. I think it's really important as an entrepreneur to it's so weird because like I said, it's going to sound strange to say it, but I've literally there have been times when I've just I get a little glimpse. I'm like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
So that's what that's like. Now that doesn't necessarily mean you get to see all the steps up to that, but you're like, okay, so how do I need to get there?
Yeah, and part of it too, I think,
but if you can see that destination, you can work your way backwards as well too, which helps with your steps forward.
For sure. I would say that the problem most people encounter when they do that is trying to get themselves out of that picture.
Yeah, it's tough
because
you're like, you just think it's like a little fantasy, or you're like, oh, I'm smarter than everyone else or whatever, and
look what I saw the future, and now it's a me thing trying to prove it to everybody that you can pipe coffee into every single building, and now we need to build
but in reality all we really have
coffee.
Is now now what's happening right now, right in front of you, according to many, is that's what you got. And I can make a really strong case for that.
Yeah.
So we got to deal with this now. So I think that's one of the challenges. So with the coffee shops, and you've mentioned, and by the way, we didn't stray off the topic because this is still about entrepreneurship. This is about coffee business. So you talked about bridging that difference. You have that that retail to that digital side to now you've got Amazon whose drone is going to drop your shit off at some point, and you're trying to figure out where you exist in the middle. Without giving too much away, how do you feel about that?
See, and here's the cool thing about it is, and
how are you going to take something that's old school? This whole conversation started with those goats.
Yeah.
Those goats.
And what do we do?
We're eating it, eating Ethiopian coffee, in the river delta of somewhere.
You can call me the goat if you want.
No, you can call me the goat, dude. I can refer to myself. I call myself the goat way too much, which is funny because 20 years ago, if you were the goat, you were actually not the greatest of all time. You were they're like, oh, that guy's the goat. You blew it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a whole different subject. But, so how do you bridge that gap? We were talking about, making simple things meaningful, but how about, that bridging the future, where do you go from now to later? Like, I mean, where do you see that occurring?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is there is no secret sauce. It is a bunch of elbow grease and just long days and hard. You have to get.
Amen.
And so, do the work is my first thing. It's like everybody's trying to get out of it.
And success demands payment in advance.
You have got to put your neck out there. You have to actually put your literal money where your mouth is.
So wait, it's not just luck?
Oh man, I'm going to tell you.
You're so lucky that things have gone well for you, Bo.
You're going to have to invest everything. And then it's going to have to get questioned. And then it's going to have to, the more problems and the more, I shouldn't say problems because they're not really problems. Like I just look at business as a muscle. Yeah. It's kind of what you were saying. Like the best teams are, I grew up playing soccer and got to play in college for a little while. And so it was when as a team, when you can all get 3 to 4 steps ahead, not just me as the leader, but I need to get my team like 3 to 4 steps ahead, because then when we're playing team ball and all of a sudden we can like switch the field and like actually make an aggressive attack on the defense, like this is where I say like that what gives me goosebumps. Like in unison, I've got my tactical team that's like here's whether it's my executive team or whether it's me and like 2 green berets that are like these hyper surgical like individuals that I have within the organization. I'm going to pair you guys up. Those
hyper-surgical individuals do nothing but practice.
Yeah, and they are super good at what they do. And it's like, I need you, and I need you, and I need to come together because we're going to go execute a new shop, something that's never been done, and I need you guys to get outside the box with me. We know the rules, now let's go break the rules. And so, but I can't break rules unless I know what they are first, and like I can't go in. I'm not from the coffee industry. I'm from the plant industry. And coffee is a plant product. I am not an entrepreneur. I'm a farm kid. I don't know what I am. I'm still trying to figure all that out. And maybe I always will.
Stop.
Maybe I will though.
I mean, I'm serious. Stop. Like I quit like that a while ago. Like, dude, I've been called so many things, some of which are complimentary in life. But like, I mean, crazy, eccentric, hyper. I mean, you name it, like all different kinds of things. And then I just quit caring. Yeah. And then like at that moment, it set a lot of things free, because I was like, you know what? Like I don't even know at what point I quit caring. Yeah. And I don't mean that in a way like I don't care, because I do care. I care about the people that care about
deeply.
To a fault.
Yeah.
But I care about the people that are on board with what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Like I'm sure you do with your employees. Now you just mentioned that you compared business. You called it a muscle.
Yeah.
And it just really reminded me so much. So I have a friend of mine is one of the guitarists in Humphreys McGee, and Jake Sininger, and he is regarded as like one of you can't rate this shit in real life, but I mean, he's like one of those like top 50 guitarists in the world.
Yeah.
And I have the most insightful conversations with him, and he says, I said, Jake, every time I see you, you're practicing. He's like, no, I don't practice. I'm like, what do you mean? I always see you playing. He says, I just keep playing.
Yeah.
Well, why do you do that? He said, because it's like a muscle.
Yeah.
And the more I have it fine tuned, the closer. So here's the thing: is it's crazy, and like I can't do this. I'm trying to figure out how, and this is where it's. So at 9:23, he's got to play 10 million notes really fast and perfect in front of thousands of people who, if he hits one of them wrong, they're all going to be online talking about how he somehow ruined their show.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? But being able to, exercising that muscle and being close to it enables him to get back to that spot that much easier. And I feel the same way about business. Like, my wife thinks I'm obsessed, and I am. And it's a problem, though. Like, it's a problem. Like, it's a strength and it's a weakness at the same time. And it's the bees, that mental chatter, because I'm like, hey, let's.
My brother does CrossFit, and he's pretty addicted to it, and he'll be the first to tell it to you. It's the same thing with people who work out, and they almost get a problem, because I've been there. It's like I was running, and I wouldn't stop. I would run until my feet just wouldn't allow, my muscles would cramp or whatever, and it's like I would get runner's high. I would get into these euphoric states of being, and I do that with business, dude.
Right? Like I literally this turned into so much about an inner shot at like the crazy, because I honestly on some days I do question that. You have this, are you a genius or are you crazy? Well, there's no way to really define that. That's more about external perception, but I mean for some of you, if you're even curious, like sometimes I go 2 days and don't sleep. I'm not like on drugs. Like
I forget to eat.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
And then I won't
like,
go to the bathroom. And like,
yeah.
my wife will be like, "What? Why didn't you take any? Where are you getting your nutrition?" I'm like, I actually don't know right
I'll
now.
go to lay down like a normal person would to go to sleep, and I'll just sit there and I just immediately know. I'm like, nope, not happening.
Yeah.
So I end up doing something else, and it's not uncommon for my employees to like come to work. And they're like, what's up? I'm like, well, I've been here since 2. They're like, a.m.? I'm like, yeah. Why? I'm like, because I just couldn't sleep.
I actually have a ritual that I do before I open each shop, and I actually work through the entire night.
Yeah.
I want to feel the energy. I want to feel every single...
I have my best ideas when I'm like ridiculously like worn
loopy.
out.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And
There's this weird half...
But it's back to the bees are quieter then.
It's
like
kinda
my
strange.
mind, it's almost like I get so quiet. That's like and another thing too for me is like I love working through the wee hours of the night because I feel like all the energy around me is a lot quieter.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm able to chill out. Okay, so wow. So here we are. We had deep talk with Matt and Bo, somewhat about coffee, which by the way may be a shrub, it may be a tree.
It's hard to tell.
If you're here in Kansas City, I'm hoping that this inspired you to bring not only yourself, your whole family, their friends, their family, everyone your kids in class with, all the people at your church, 100% of people that you meet, bring them down to Thou Mayest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be okay. Now that may equate
cool.
to a long line, but fortunately Bo's created a work culture of hardworking, focused baristas that have their eyes on the prize, and they're going to probably turn that line out pretty quick.
We're getting there. We know that the new one that we did down on the Crossroads, we built it for speed.
Yeah, and let's talk about that real quick. Where are your 4 locations right now?
So man, a whole different crazy story. We can save this for another one.
Yeah, we might have to pick this up again.
Yeah,
we're going to come do this at your place next time.
Yeah, especially we could go out in the greenhouse and we could really get in touch with some zen.
Okay, I'm confused. Are we still talking about coffee?
Oh, well, we're talking about morning coffee. Because going out into the greenhouse, we have Cafe Equinox.
When I hear that, I
know.
just think different things.
I know.
Different times. I'm old.
Well, it's just more than one way to quiet the bees.
Yeah.
But we opened Cafe Equinox on February 16th, and it was sandwiched in between 2 blizzards. And I'd retained one guy who's my GM after we closed we closed the shop in the Crossroads December 31st, and we just said we're going to take a month off. We need to chill. Last year was crazy. Let's just recalibrate, make sure we're doing what we want to be doing, and make sure the business is healthy or whatever. Everything look good? Cool. All right, let's take a month off. We come back and it's kind of a mess. We basically did not touch anything for a month.
We didn't exercise the muscle, man.
We did not,
yeah.
and so it
you're
came
gonna
back.
be a little sore after that first workout.
Yeah. So we came back. We opened up Cafe Equinox inside of Family Tree Nursery in Shawnee on February 16th, in between 2 blizzards. And day 1, as soon as we opened up, there was an hour-long wait for like 8 hours straight, but that extended for like a month and a half of daily. I mean, we were just in shock. I got so emotional on that. I was just a ball of tears.
It's humbling.
Because like the brand willed itself back to life.
Yeah, no. But people told you the world spoke and they said that we want you here.
And it was like, no, but you don't want me. It's not me. It's like you want this brand. You want this thing.
It's humbling. Like entrepreneurship and is humbling in many ways. That can be one of them.
It's a moment that I will never forget. It's so solidified where I was like, this is so much bigger. It's so much more important. Like whatever happens in the future, I am just setting up the bumper rails when I'm a parent at this point and to this growing child, and like I just need to make sure that I discipline it when it needs to, and then I'm able to like keep pushing. Here's take a break. All right, keep pushing. Let's take a break, and like you throttle it, and all of a sudden you're like, now we're training. Let's go party for a second. All right, let's just celebrate the wins. Like, all right, back to train. Let's go. Come on, guys. And so it becomes like this workout, right? Because it's a muscle, and it's like I want to get good at working that business muscle, because that to me it means so much more. Yes, the coffee, of course, Of course, that's the bare minimum, right? We talked about earlier, like you show up to work, that's the bare minimum. It says Coffee Roasters in my name. It is no shit I'm focusing on coffee. No shit. Like, I get that. Like, but if I'm looking at the EMyth and I'm looking at Rework and I'm using really just those two books and I'm saying, if I can structure our company and our lifestyle and our motto and everything, it's so simple. But we just have to stay really focused on, like, this is overarching. This is a business muscle that we need to learn how to do. We need to pivot, keep going, muscle test, take a product to market, do it again, keep doing it. Like, are we good at this? Are we good? Hey, measure. I said measure. Did you get that? Like, we have to measure this thing so that we can continue being better. And all of a sudden we look back after 5 years and, like, we were in a fucking garage 6 years ago. That is insane to me. And, like, people will say, where are you going to be in the next 6 years? I don't know. On the moon?
Ask me in 5.5.
I don't know. Like,
or 5 3/4.
I don't even know what to say. We play a game that we say our 5-year past visits our present. And that 5-year past, being in a garage, and I'm sorry, what? You guys have like 5 stores. You got to hang out with your favorite band, Wilco. You got all of I gave a TED Talk. And that was on my bucket list of things to do before I die. And I did it in year 2. And I'm like, I probably need to get some bigger goals here, because this is happening very quickly. And if I don't continually stay fresh on this stuff, and if I don't stay looking towards whatever that is ahead of us, if we don't have somebody paving the way or kind of clearing the path, it's just going to be like fighting through the brambles the entire time, and the business is just kind of stumbling forward. Like, where are we going? What are we doing? We don't even know.
But the true pioneers of anything, whether it's trying to blaze the Oregon Trail or anything else, there you are.
No,
whoever's first has the hardest path most of the time, and it's kind of easy to follow.
But and this is why I say everybody has that hard path. Like, you have your own unique path, because the world doesn't need more coffee. The world really does not need what I have to, like, the essence of my product. There's plenty of great coffee out there. But what the world does need is the flavor and the uniqueness that that Bill and I, my business partner and I, are able to put on our take on business. This is our narrative on how business should be done, selling coffee with cafes in an entrepreneurial, growing, blossoming city that's in a renaissance in the Midwest. And, so it starts here, starts inside of you. And it's that quote that's like, you can't change the world if you can't change yourself. And it's, if I can't convince my grandma, somebody who loves me, who's so close to me, but who doesn't really understand coffee, she knows nothing about coffee. Sorry if you're listening to this, Grandma.
Remember, Grandma, it's a shrub.
Yeah, just remember, you're never going to get past that. If I can convince, if I can show her, like, why it's important, or what the qualitative differences are that she's tasting, because she doesn't really know. She just kind of smacks her lip and says, "Oh, pretty good." And I'm like, I was hoping for more, but that's awesome. That's awesome. And so the more I can get that, I can really dive down into the things that are meaningful. Like, I noticed you called this Wild Child. Why'd you call it that? And all of a sudden we've set the seductive hooks.
Right.
So we've got all these hooks that we've set out that we're trying to get people to hook onto, whether it's, why'd you put meters above sea levels and altitude? Or did you get this individually hand lettered? Did you create your own font for this? Or where did you buy your furniture for your cafe? That's been the weirdest one so far. People trying to buy my furniture off me. Like, maybe I should go start a furniture business.
Probably not. No. Don't do it. Don't do it. Bo, you've got my number. So the thing is we might have to have a support group.
Oh,
I'll be your sponsor.
For sure.
If you think about starting any new businesses, I want you to call me first, because I'm going to give you the typical rundown. I'm going to be like, okay, dude, no, I want you to just call me back tomorrow and tell me you still think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
No, it's okay, because I'm going to support your dreams and I'm going to help you move forward. But no, it's funny. I'm sure you get this a lot, and we'll wrap this up, because We're going to clearly have to follow this up. I think I might just call this Coffee Talk because I think we might have to do this a little more regularly.
We've got a few older cars too that we can get a hold of if we need to do a version of like comedians in cars getting coffee. I was talking to Zach Pettit about this.
He's come and done it.
Yeah, I've talked to him about this. I was like, we should do this with entrepreneurs though. Is like get them into the hot seat in the car and like start going around and
we kind of do that here. We kind of do that here.
Just set some of the video.
Some people are nervous because normally like we didn't get into this, and that's why we're going to do a follow up. But this has been interesting. Well, first off, thanks for coming in, and we'll wrap this up in a minute. So I always like to do a little recap, and remember, your mind and your location can also be an idea brothel.
Yes.
And I hope you guys enjoyed hearing about, by the way, I really enjoyed this. I love these kind of spirited conversations. I love being around anybody that is just passionate, just about it.
I hope it just doesn't come across as like being all over the place, because I try to make it as cohesive so it actually comes across as
that's
one
not,
thought.
No, you're fine. Like
I just get in this river, I get in this flow, and I just go with it. And
but you get the whole point of things like this and conversations like this, and for those listening, is like, did you hear one thing in this last hour and 10 minutes that made sense or was
Is that
helpful?
how long it's been?
Yeah, it goes fast. I know. You're probably late to like 3 other things, but no, I mean, and normally like we keep talking on this until there's not stuff to talk about, or until I'm afraid we'll run out of tape. But so some of the things too, and looking back at these differentiators between your product, your service, and your environment, like this is all really good stuff. And then I really think the real moral of the story here is, on some levels, to be an entrepreneur and to do things that people aren't doing does require a little bit of crazy. I don't let people tell me I'm nuts anymore. Like I knew that a long time ago. Like, give me something fresh. Like, tell me something that people haven't told me.
Throw a little fuel on that fire. You think this is crazy?
I mean,
just wait.
Fuck it. Like, you know what? Like, go to work then, and don't talk to me, because I don't. You're not helping by saying that. I mean, shit happens, but. I'd like to do a follow-up. I'd like to actually do, I think we may have to prepare, but probably won't, I think we should just need to talk about like the most cataclysmic failures of being an entrepreneur. Like, I might just write a book called Things I Suck At.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be a bestseller. So, well, anyway, for those of you listening, if you get a chance, Thou Mayest, they're all over Kansas City. Check it out. You guys have an online store?
Yeah, so we do thoumayest.com. In February, our good friends at Key Coffee in the River Market at the Nelson Atkins reached out. We acquired them in February going into March. So we have those 2 stores now. We'll start making some changes on those coming up next. Because we just released the newest of the stores called The Outpost, and it's located inside a Collective X. It's down on the Crossroads, a block to the east from our old shop. And we've got some other fun spots coming on by the end of the year here. But The Outpost, the newest one, there's Cafe Equinox as well. That is inside of Family Tree Nursery in Shawnee, inside of a greenhouse. So if you really want that plant experience, that's a really fun. It's a very different experience, especially in the wintertime.
And we're going to post a link to this, because in 7 to 10 days when this actually comes out, he'll probably have like 4 more.
At least 4 more, yeah. So
maybe 6.
We just opened 4 in the last 6 months. So yeah, that's been nuts. And so yeah, you can go to thoumayest.com. We're really active on social media, mostly Instagram. We have Facebook and a little bit of Twitter action, and
you have content out there, Bo Nelson, B-O Nelson.
Yeah, it's it's underscore Bo. There's a lot of underscores in there.
You can find it. We can find it if you put in Bo Nelson coffee and if you gargle it, you'll find it. Yeah. Anyway, folks, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.